Hi everyone, welcome to a brand new episode of Leading on Purpose. My name is Grace Makwaza and it is an absolute honor to speak to you. This is a show that speaks about the importance of leadership, the sustainable development goals, as well as how to harness the power within to make a positive impact in the society. Today we're speaking about how to maintain legacies that have been passed on to us by people who have run the race before us. And I'm joined today by a guest who has just stepped into very big shoes, but he's adamant on ensuring that the legacy that he carries on is not only meaningful, but it impacts the lives of the people that he interacts with. Sir, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Grace.
Introduce yourself to our people.
Sure. Hello, viewers. My name is Mwenda Ntarangwi. I am serving here at the USIU-Africa as a Vice Chancellor. Welcome.
It is such an honor to have you here. I'm so excited to have this conversation. We're speaking about something that is of absolute value to me, which is legacy. And before we even delve into the main topics of what I want to speak to you about, I want to ask you, what are some of the values that have informed who you are today, and how do they influence your position as the VC in this institution?
Thank you. Values that have influenced me.
Yes. What are the values that have shaped you?
They have shaped me. Mm-hmm. I would say number one is integrity, trust, and excellence. Those are very important to me, and I hope that I can bring them to the work that I do here at this university, and as I serve, also that I can model it for the people around me and the people watching me. Yes.
I love that you spoke about excellence, because that's one of my values as well. I believe in ensuring that I don't delve into things which are mediocre, because it not only insults the value of what I'm trying to put forth, but it equally undermines the impact that would have been made if I chose the path of excellence. So how do you model excellence as an individual?
Excellence is doing what you have to the best of your ability. There is a challenge where you just want to get by. I think many times we don't want to push ourselves. Many times we are looking at the now, but excellence endures because you do it well. And if you can do things well, they will outlast you. You also have to model it. For instance, if you're carrying out an assignment, have you given it your best shot? That's what I would say is very, very key. And you don't just do it over one episode. It is something you cultivate over time. Challenging yourself, pushing yourself, and also trying to push those that you're working with to gain the same level of excellence. Yes.
I think it's so good that you mentioned something that has to do with excellence being something that has to outlive you as a person, which brings us to our topic at hand, which is legacy.
Yes.
What legacy do you want to live in the world? Okay, before the world, in this institution.
In this institution. Let me look at that word legacy, because if you come in as a leader with intention of leaving a legacy, there is a temptation to do certain things that you want to be remembered for. But legacies actually come through reflection. You've seen over time, what has this person done? You know, there are some things I would like to do, but will there be legacy building? I don't know. And that's why those values of excellence, trust, integrity might shape you into the person who will create legacy. So I don't want to prematurely say I want to do this, but I want to be remembered as someone who gave their best in undertaking the work that they were given, the person who did it with integrity, and the person who can be relied upon, trusted, and believed, because they are also authentic. Authenticity is a major ingredient. So maybe I'll be remembered for certain things, but I would like first to make sure that I build on those values that you started by asking me. Yes.
All right. So there's usually a temptation, speaking specifically on what you just said.
Yes.
There's a temptation for change all the time.
Yes.
But I want to ask you about continuity.
Yes.
You're stepping into the shoes of someone who has done a marvelous job.
Yes.
And what are some of the things that she has left behind that you wish to build upon to not only impact the lives of students here, but to ensure that there's progress and evolution
Yes.
in the education that students are receiving at the school?
Sure. Thank you. And I think I would say first is what I learned about, you're talking about Dr. Lola.
Yes, Dr. Lola.
Who was the interim vice chancellor
Yes.
in the period before I came in. One of the things that I saw being said about her when we had a go-away party for her was that she brought back humanity to the kinds of interactions and management that have happened in this institution. I would say that is not a big shoe to fit in, because in my own philosophy of leadership, and I was talking to student leaders yesterday who are in a retreat in Sagana, and I told them one of the things that I have done over the years is invest in people. By investing in people means you think broadly about others as you're moving, because they say on your way up, look at the people that you'll find on the sidelines, because on your way down, you will still find the same people. What will be the expressions in their faces when you're coming down? Will they be cheering and saying, it's about time you went down? Or will they saying, oh, I wish you had stayed longer because you've pulled us up as well? So if you invest in people and you make sure that you're moving along with them so that they're also being built, I think there is a challenge where we want to do things for ourselves and we're willing to step on other people's backs and discard them once we get where we are. I think that's not my style. So my interest now is to say, well, how am I going to relate with people? How am I going to build people? But how am I going to hold people accountable to what they have also committed to doing? Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So in trying to ensure that the students here get the best education, because even our motto itself says education to take you places.
Yes.
What do you want your contribution to be towards the student? Because you've spoken about the people, and I'm assuming that you're speaking about the people who actually hold this institution together.
Yes.
But this education is towards the students.
Yes.
What impact do you want to make in their lives?
First of all, students are the core
Yes.
of the institution. Without students, USIU would not be what it is today. So that's number one. Number two, it takes a lot of moving parts to make students succeed. Number one is to give them the kind of education that they expect from USIU. You know what that means? It means that having the right kind of qualifications for the people teaching them, having the right kind of expectations of the students as well. If you push students, they will raise to the standard. If you just do mediocre work, they will just do the same. So we have to also know that we're pushing them to get better. Number three, give them opportunities to learn many, many ways of doing things that they want to do, including internships, including visiting with other students, including presentations in class, learning how to build their own personal skills, communication, practices in how you build a presentation, those kinds of things. But also bringing in alumni to say, I was here, and these are the things I learned. These are the things I've now ended up doing because of the kind of training I had. But also give them resources, equipment, books, opportunities to enhance their knowledge and challenge them. Yes.
I think we're moving in a time where, unfortunately, the value of education is being undermined. And how you're speaking about education is reminding me of why I wanted to be educated in the first place, because I personally believe that education is it's a sacred foundation. The education that we receive here as students, I feel that it is a good compass for us. However, I want to know from you, what do you have to say to students who are losing hope in education? Because it's almost like education has been commodified. So how do we ensure that students don't lose the hope that they need to have in the education they're receiving specifically here?
There's a saying that was used in what is called the United Negro College Fund. It says, if you think education is expensive, try ignorance. All right? Let me start with that and say, a lot of times we tend to conflate education with training. The disappointment, the loss of hope that you're talking about among students is that they are seeing education only through the lens of training as an end to give you a certain job, of course, very well paying job and all that. That is skill training. Education is for citizenship, broadly. Belonging in the job market, belonging in the world, living with others, interacting with diverse people, thinking for yourself, self-governing, all those things that you learn that cannot just be trained because you are being trained as a cameraman. The cameraman is a person with so many other skills and values that are integrated through the education system. Yes, if you just look at education through the lens of job creation or job attainment, you can get frustrated. And it's not because education is not valuable. It's because maybe our job opportunities, our economy is not growing the number of jobs needed to absorb a lot of these graduates. So I still value education because of the fact of training you, helping you first self-discovery. I'm sure when you came in here, Grace, from Lesotho, you had certain values inculcated in you, but they have been expanded. Some have been challenged. Some have been modified because of the ways you've interacted with a different country and some different people representing other countries as well from Africa, because USIU is a very diverse university. Those have built you more than if you just stuck to Lesotho and got trained to be just a teacher or just a mechanic. So I would like to look at education as much more encompassing of so many values, skills, positions that help you to become a wholesome human being. That's how I see it. Yes.
Maybe perhaps I should challenge that a bit and ask you on the fact that everything around us is evolving.
Yes.
The tablet in my hand did not exist 25 years ago.
Exactly.
Why is it that education, we are so complacent with its evolution, whereas everything around it is evolving? Don't you think it would be more meaningful for students to know that the education system is evolving at the same pace with everything else around it?
When you say evolving, you're thinking of gadgets. There are tools that deliver information, make the things we do better, but there is a core of how people learn. And how people learn is not always switching to get more information. It's the habits you form. Actually, we learn more from the questions we ask, not the answers we want to give. And so if education can help you build those critical thinking skills that are transferable to any situation, what we call the uncharted territories, then gadgets like this, yes, we can see them changing. You know what has changed them? It's research built on another foundation you don't just get born and just go into research. There are foundational. It is building up. It's like a staircase, one leading to the next, one leading to the next. So yes, if you're talking about are we helping students understand the different tools that they can use to gain knowledge or gain skills, then yes, that is a challenge. And I think we've done pretty well at this university in that regard. But indeed, learning, as much as we live in a very fast society, learning takes time because it takes experimentation, testing things. They don't work. Test again, sticking with the same principles of inquiry and doing things right. So yes, we are not refusing to change. Certain things may take time, but I think the gadgets that we use, the things that we do as educators can be modified through the elements that we have. For instance, I am no longer, as a teacher, the fountain of knowledge. You can get the information I'll give you in an introductory class within a second. What should I teach you is, one, how to sift through all this knowledge, understand what is the most important. To understand that knowledge itself is produced from a specific political angle for influence or for consumption. So how do I train you so that you don't take everything? I'm sure you've seen in social media, maybe it's WhatsApp or forward. And the thing is forwarded many times. And that gives you some confidence that it's such a beautiful thing. But you find it's fake. If I can train you to question, that way then you don't get to consume knowledge, even though it's available everywhere. How do you learn to pick and choose the right things? I think that's where we are coming. It's no longer just information dumping. It's not the sage on stage. It's a coach on the side telling you, I can see that. Why don't you do this? Why don't you do this? So that you can also be part of your own learning process.
You know, there are other people who often argue that education is not personal because it's so general to people. And I like what you're saying about education being it's supposed to be slow but meaningful to students. I want to ask you specifically about the disconnect between the older generation now of educators and the younger generation now who feel that education system is not being tailor-made for their talents. For example, I'm a speaker. I'm not very good at writing and all of that. But then someone else is good at writing, but we get the same education. How do students now take upon themselves the responsibility to ensure that their personal skills are being useful in that education sphere?
I think, Grace, what you're saying is that, and we've known this from all theories of education, that learners have very big differences in terms of how we learn, how we engage with information. There are some of us who are more attuned to working with our hands, and we learn. There are others who just listen to a lecture or listen or watch a video, and they remember everything. There are others who would like to start with questions. There are others who just want to observe something being done. And all those could be in the same classroom. The question is for us now as educators, are we aware of those students? Are we aware of that buffet of students within our learning context? And what are our preparations? How are we prepared to do the kind of work that will help each one of those students be met? And then I come to challenging the students. How do you know yourself? How do you learn? Are you aware of your learning style? What can you do? I like this idea of a personalized approach to education. And that's what the AI and other tech innovations have allowed us to do. How do we use that to augment? You see, I went to school when there was very little in terms of resources for books and other things. But I have no excuse now. We have all that information. How are we attuned to also learning more beyond what is in the classroom? In fact, for me as a teacher, I would like to just whet your appetite and get you now moving. That's what I would say. We are all in this together. I think the challenge comes where we still have that mentality that the teacher is the source of all knowledge. And it's not. I am a teacher, I've been a teacher for long, and I can acknowledge the fact that I am not the sole source of knowledge. Also, teachers and students should be lifelong learners.
So perhaps I should also ask you about the transformative element of education. What should be done to ensure that education is not only personal, you've touched on the personal aspect, how can it transform the students here?
I think transformation happens when two things collide or interact. Self-knowledge and the knowledge of the world. One is you realize, I hope, how much you know or don't know, and then you realize how diverse, big, deep, wide the world is. That, as we grow up as children, we are all self-centered. It's me, 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 me. Then you come to a university like this. First, you're challenged to manage your own time. When you're in high school, when you're in college, someone tells you, oh, you need to go to class, this is the time to do this and that. Then you come to the university and you're told, you are a major in IR. These are the courses. This is where they meet. You decide whether you want to go to class or not. So that self-awareness, self-management is now cast into a broader world of people who you've never met, of areas of knowledge you've never interacted with. You're making more choices that are affecting you. And so that transformation happens at that intersection between self-knowledge, self-discovery, and understanding of the world. Each class you're taking, I can tell you, is opening you up to another part of the world. Whether it is by authors, whether it is by practice, it is opening you up. So transformation happens when those intersect, and then they align with your values, with your passions, with your desires as well. That's what I would say.
Okay.
Yes.
So I want to bring you to a different lane of the whole conversation.
Yes.
It has always felt to me that there's an idealistic element in education because it's almost like it promises a path that this is what people should follow and that will be the outcome. X will be the outcome when you input Y. So for me, I have come to learn, especially as a university student, that there are twists and turns. Sometimes you get a B, sometimes you get an A. And it almost feels like what is lacking in education as a whole globally is the lack of preparation for students to handle disappointment, to handle the curves in life, to handle the fact that things don't always go as we want. I remember a time in my life where I loathed being intelligent because it felt like being intelligent was a guarantee, somewhat a chip that you're given that everything is going to work out. And when things don't work out, you resent the education that was supposed to give you these things. What I'm trying to say is there's no character of resilience that is being built. And is it the fault of the education system globally, transcending USIU itself? Or are we as a generation lacking in this resilience? And if so, how do we build it?
You are touching on very, very critical areas, Grace. When my generation went to school, we would take the national exam. It still goes on. And the national exam sort of winnows. It's like when you're winnowing grain and you're removing certain elements. So it becomes from a very large foundation to thinner and thinner and thinner to the top. So when you go to the university, there are certain cut points. Still happens. So in that, we have assumed first that education and testing defines the best in society. So there's that expectation. All right? So you start looking at yourself, well, I'm the cream. All right? Number two, in the season we are in now, we also have opportunities to recreate ourselves into our own image through social media. This is who I don't like the glasses. They should look round. And I can just go in there with a few touches here and there. I can create an image that I want. All right? So one is setting you up for high expectations. The other one is telling you you can recreate and change yourself. Now, the world doesn't always work that way. The cream is not always the most successful down the road. And so, herein lies frustrations. The image you want to see of yourself is not always enduring, you know? And so, we are already there. And you remember that sometimes we don't also want to be told the truth. You know, it's rude or you're doing this. Of course, there are some people who are rude and they tell you the wrong things. They're not even sensitive. That's not what I'm talking about. I think education to help you be resilient tends to happen not just in the tests, but also in real life. You have ambitions. You thought you had everything set for this particular role, for instance, and you miss it. Someone else gets it. How do you handle that? What is your emotional intelligence? What is your ability to handle yourself and handle your emotions? That's why I started by saying you need to be aware of yourself and learn how you learn and learn what ticks you off and what allows you to be calm. So yes, indeed, we need to have a culture of resilience because pitfalls will come, failures will come, but how do we handle them? They say you learn more from mistakes than from someone else's examples. I think it is true. And failure should not be seen as a big deal. It should be seen as a lesson. But what have you learned through that failure? Do you keep failing on the same thing? A mistake repeated over and over and over? No. That's how you build resilience. Yes.
What about complacency? I feel like there's a need to improve as a society, but I also know that there are things which should be left as they are. For example, people should stop cutting trees.
I'm waiting for...
People should stop cutting trees. People should stop doing that. It's the most basic example. People should stop littering. There are things which are obvious and they should not be done. In the education system, what should we leave as it is and what should we improve on?
I think it goes beyond the education. One, littering has to do with how do you watching, regard the world. Is it someone else's business or is it my business? You see, you don't litter your own bedroom. Maybe some do that and they shouldn't. But do you see the world as someone else's property or is it our property? That's number one. Number two, cutting trees has a certain socio-cultural background to it. Have we always cut trees? Do we have practices back in our days with our forefathers where we said, this tree, you cannot climb it. If you climb it, this will happen to you. How have those values been inculcated and introduced in our modern living? I think, again, the idea of ownership, but also the questions that we have to do with if we have a minimum level of livelihood where people feel like I don't have to struggle for my next meal, they'll have the luxury of thinking about the other parts that are not directly related to them. So, Grace, I know this is an environmental question. There are certain things that need to be in place. Minimum basic livelihood, humanity, dignity of humans, that they can say, yes, I don't have to do this. And this has been done in places where instead of coming in and saying, don't, they say, what are the circumstances that are leading to this happening? How can they be given alternatives? Because livelihood is a basic right. Food, shelter, security, clothing, all those things, they're very, very important. And a right to some level of education so that you can make informed decisions. What else should be done to help them feel like they're secure, they belong? Yes. Yeah.
Okay, so my next question to you is about policy. Education policy is vast as it is, and there are global standards that we need to uphold as a global system. What are some of the policies globally that you want to draw from that will inform your leadership at USIU? Let me not even put it as a policy thing. Let it be a standard.
Okay.
Yes. What are some of the global standards that you want to inform how you lead this institution to be the type that upholds its motto, which is education to take you places?
Quality standards, number one. Inclusive education, number two. Education that is student-centered, number three. Those are very, very important. Quality that is not only global, but also contextualized, so that it serves every student in every local context. All right? Inclusive education that caters for different styles of learning, but also for students with major challenges. They should also have the same level of quality of education that we have. And then, of course, excellence in the ways in which students are being prepared to face the world, introducing them to be part of the global culture, moving them away from just not being local, but global, which we have done for the most part at USIU. And I'm proud of that.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you,
It was such
Grace.
an honor speaking to you, and I wish you all the best in your time as the Vice Chancellor of USIU. Thank you so much to the viewers. Thank you for joining us. I hope this conversation was meaningful and impactful to you, and we will see you in the next one.